Hello.
Hello.
All right, welcome to, I love how that's how my podcast always starts, is like, hello, giggle, giggle, giggle. And welcome to this week's episode of Love Dripping from the Walls. And I'm Elizabeth Cunningham, your host. And this week we have the Cora Boyd. Oh my God.
Not the other one.
Not the
to
other
be
one.
Confused with the other.
The other Cora
Boyd.
Boyd. The Cora Boyd.
Yes, exactly.
I just started following you on Instagram actually this morning. Yes.
Oh, great. I'll hit you back with a sweet follow.
Because it's the Cora Boyd.
Yeah.
I was like on your website and then it was like, follow me on Instagram. And
yeah.
And I was like, oh, I'm not following Cora. What's the matter with me?
Yeah, what the fuck, Elizabeth Ann Cunningham?
Oh my gosh.
Maybe I should call you the Elizabeth Ann Cunningham.
That is how we met, is talking about middle name.
But my middle name is also Elizabeth.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, and we were talking about like the nobility and just like the majesty of the name Elizabeth.
Yeah. And then I was like, well, my full name is Elizabeth Ann Cunningham. And you were like, oh my God. There's like a group of people that we were talking to.
Right.
And everybody was like, that is a real
it is so noble. Yes. Elizabeth Ann Cunningham.
Yup.
Yes.
And then we all called each other by our full names for the rest of the night.
Call me by your full name. You know what we should do is you should call me by your name. Like, let's pull a call me by your name, and I should start calling you the Cora Boyd, and you should start calling me the Elizabeth Ann Cunningham.
I don't even know what to say to that.
No comment necessary.
Nope, just that's how it's gonna go now. Okay, great.
It's not gonna be confusing at all.
I told Brandy, we were driving in the car yesterday, and I was like, Brandy, do you know what I'm really excited about? And of course, she has no idea because I'm excited about everything all the time. And she was like, I don't know, what are you excited about? And I was like, tomorrow I am interviewing Cora for the podcast.
Yes.
And her immediate response was, oh my God, you guys are going to have so much fun.
I think it's happening.
It's happening.
I think
it's
she
happening
foresaw.
right now.
Yeah.
She did. Well, it's so perfect because that's what we were just talking about, and we'll just get into that. But anyway, so this is the Cora Boyd, not to be confused with myself. Oh no. And Cora is a romance and relationship expert, which is so accurate, just ridiculously accurate. And so what is a romance and relationship expert?
So I work with people to ignite more romance in their lives and equip them with the skills to create romantic opportunities for themselves and enjoy the process.
That is so juicy and
yes,
awesome.
It's fun as hell.
Oh my God, I love it. And that's exactly why I had you on my podcast, is because that is what you do. It's not just what you do, that's just who you are. Like, you just exude that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. When I remember when we first met, and we were like, oh, I'm a coach and I'm a coach and we're coaching inside of romance and dating. And and I was like, me too. And it was just like so clear and apparent. Yeah, you just love people and love fun. And so I love that you have that at the end where it's like, and enjoying the process.
The process. Yeah. I was saying just before we started recording too, of like, fun is like super integral to the way I move through the world. Like, if something's not fun, I'm not going to fucking do it. And it's also something that like so many people come to me to work with me because they're like incredibly frustrated with dating, and they just like, they feel this heaviness around it, and they like, they don't like it, or, you know, maybe they kind of like it, but they're just like not experiencing what they want to experience. Like they're not experiencing the quality of like dates, or like the a caliber of people they want to attract, or like they're just not experiencing, they're not enjoying the process at all. For one reason or another. So that is super important to what I take clients through, is how can we customize this approach in such a way that like it makes sense, it's action oriented, like we're getting you out there, we're changing your behaviors, we're changing your beliefs, we're like opening up your beliefs. And most importantly, we're doing it in such a way that like you're actually having fun. You're enjoying yourself. Because when you feel good, when you're having fun, that's when you have that magnetism where like dating actually becomes very easy when you find a way to enjoy it. Because then you're a pleasure to be around. And like dating is relationships, it's just spending time together. You know what I mean? It's really what it is. It's like, do people want to spend time with you? Yeah. Right? Like get to a place where you want to spend time with yourself, and you're just having a great time being yourself and spending time with yourself, and like moving through your experiences and getting to know different people, and like you're having such a good time that people can't help but have a great time with you.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Which is why we have such a good time together.
Yes.
But what that makes me think of is that you create your own fun, right? Like, and that's what it sounds like you do, is where you have people see new possibilities, you change your mindset around something, and then all of a sudden people are able to start to create their own fun and create themselves as fun and enjoyable and and not in like a contrived way, but in like an actual or organic, like authentic way.
It's also literally psychological. When we feel good, it's called broaden and build theory. When we feel good, we can literally see more possibilities. Like literally perceive more possibilities. When someone is like depressed or feeling super shitty and low, we go, or like in fear in some way, their brain goes into like fight or flight mode, where you see like, okay, there are two options from when you're in survival mode in any way. Like you see fewer options because it's to the benefit of your survival to see fewer options. But when you're relaxed, when you feel good, like that's why shit flows so well, is because you can literally see more possibilities. You can perceive them because you're not in a state of fear and survival. Isn't that awesome?
So freaking cool.
Yeah. And one more note about the like enjoying being yourself is this is kind of built off of a lot of work I've done with my coach, whose name is Morgan Fields. She's in Miami. She's fucking awesome.
Shout out to Morgan
Shout out to Morgan Field. Yes, love her. She's changed my life so much. But she defines self-love as the amount of time you spend loving being yourself. Isn't that great?
Fuck.
Yeah, it's so simple, it's so true, and it's also such a great metric to live your life by.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's amazing. And I just yesterday, this is so funny, and it's so weird how that happens, you know, where you have like themes that come up in your life. This is what happens to me, and I like to notice patterns in things. Yeah. And just paying attention to the patterns of, oh, this has been a common theme this week. Maybe it's a lesson that I need to learn, or maybe it's, whatever.
It doesn't go away until you learn it.
It does not go away until you learn it. Yeah. And so yesterday I was sitting there and I was like, oh, because I always talk about how I really love myself, and I really learned how to like myself and love myself and things like that. And yesterday I was sitting there at a coffee shop and I had this thought like, oh, I haven't really been liking myself very much lately. Oh man, like that might be why I'm super stressed out about things, is like I actually haven't, and it just dawned on me. I was just like, man, I've been really hard on myself. I've been like beating myself up about stuff.
And that's where like when your critical voice is going off like that, it's like, of course you're not getting along that well with other people, or like criticizing them, or like, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I was like, oh, check on that. Okay, cool. I was like, what
do we need to do about that?
Right, exactly. Like, what do I need to do to turn that around? And then it's just like, well, for me personally, like practicing gratitude, like what are the things that I'm grateful for in myself?
Yeah.
And I have other tips and tricks and stuff, but this podcast is about you. And I would love to, like, I'm so curious about, I know that mainly you've worked with men and you're kind of opening that up.
Yeah.
And expanding upon that. But primarily you have worked with men.
So historically I've been a dating coach for men. And I am based, I mean, honestly, in response to the inquiries I've been getting, and then also in terms of like what feels more aligned to me and like what feels more exciting to me is like the entire spectrum of relationships and relationship building. And like everything that includes, right? Like I think when we say dating, it's, we very often like, think of like the very initial courtship phase. Or what I see, is that like, yes, it's a different skill set to like source dates and meet people and go on those initial dates, et cetera, right? Like that's its own skill set in itself. But you don't stop having problems or challenges when you get into a relationship. You just get a higher caliber. So that's what I like to impart to my clients too, is like, we're not like, let's reframe what a problem is. Like problems get to be really juicy. So I've studied psychology of happiness a lot. And like, we actually really need challenge in order to be happy. We need to be engaged, right?
Yeah.
So I feel really passionately about like, you don't need to avoid having problems. It's just like, how can you invite in higher caliber problems in your life, right? So like when you get into a relationship, when you're meeting people, if you're in that initial courtship phase, like there are certain problems at every interval, at every juncture.
Sure.
But like that, it's just a challenge. It's like, what's your current challenge? Exactly like you were saying of like, what is the lesson I'm learning right now? It's like, and you can look to it like, oh my God, yes, I have XYZ problem, or like my partner and I are, calibrating how much alone time we need and how much time we need together and how to balance that with the rest of our social life, or, whatever it might be. Like that's something that Benjamin and I work on because we both need a lot of time alone. But like, it's something we don't hit on, perfectly every time. It's a practice really, but like that's a fucking high caliber problem to have. It's like, I want to hang out with you and I want to hang out with myself and I want to hang out with my friends and I want to meet new people and know.
And I want to take over the world.
Yeah,
and,
exactly. And I'm building a fucking empire.
That's
okay.
fucking right. I was like, I said that I'm building a love empire.
Yes.
We build this our love empires, Cora.
Yes. We just air high fived.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyhow, I got a little sidetracked. What I was saying with that is that what I feel really passionately about is like equipping people with the skill set and like the tools and the mindset to navigate multiple stages of being in relationship, of interacting with people. So it's not just about, learn how to like be a great first date. It's like, okay, then what? Like, and then how do you like co-create? How do you actually like build a relationship that's really intentional and that you're both stoked about? Like there's so much that goes into this that like and I'll continue to use the word dating because it's a word that we use, right? But like I find the word dating a little confining.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or it's for me, it's kind of associated with a certain industry where like this is a way of being.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what you're talking about, as I'm hearing it, you're talking about is building a relationship with someone and all the stages of what that looks like. And I would say that one of those stages is called dating.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
But it's just a part of it.
It's just a part of it. Right.
Yeah.
Like of course it's a word that like does encapsulate a lot, but
it is confining.
It's kind of confining. And it's also like, this skill set is about knowing how to build and navigate relationships of all sorts, whether that's like building rapport on a first date, whether that's like building a new relationship, whether that is like, I mean, the thing is with relationships, they're living organisms because they're two changing, evolving people. So like they don't remain static ever. Mm-hmm. So it's always a practice of like learning how to be in relationship with a person, even if you've been together for 5 years. It's like shit changes.
Yeah,
it needs change. Like people evolve. Like this is a practice that is relevant for people like out there dating or like meeting new people, going on initial dates, as it is for people in relationships. It's just like bringing more intentionality and more delight to relating.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think that people get stuck in how the relationship starts out is one thing that I see anyway. Totally. Is that, you don't treat the relationship as that separate entity that it is. Mm-hmm. Right?
It's a group project.
Right. It's a group project. It's a group project. And when people are like, oh, well, it's not how it used to be, or, why isn't it like how it used to be?
Right.
It's like, it's never going to be how it used to be. Right. That was you 2 years ago. You're not who you were,
Right. 2 years Ideally, ago, you're growing and learning every day. And so is your partner. And so your relationship is evolving.
Right.
With you and growing with you. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, man. So juicy. And I really want to stay on this like topic of fun.
Yes.
Like making it fun. And I really like the like having problems be like using the word challenges.
Right. It's like, or like, right. Like you think of a game, right? Like there's a problem set. There's something to work out, right? It's like, oh, that's actually kind of fun, right? Of being like, okay, how can I get creative about this like recurring issue or, whatever it might be? And like, how can I play with this? Like play is huge for me of like, or, really what an attitude I instill into my clients is like, as I said, looking at dating and relationships as this playground for personal growth, because it really is. And there are so many variables we can't control, and we cannot control what someone else does with themselves, but we can control what we do with ourselves and like the meaning we take from certain experiences and like how we take that in stride and how we build on that. And like, that's where I like to put the focus and help people focus is like, stop worrying so much about like success and failure in dating, right? Like you're being successful in relationships if you're learning and growing and enjoying yourself and having like fulfilling connection with people. It's not about like making something work out or not. Like, whew, you know what I mean? It's like, dude, what am I learning here? And like, how can I show up as a better version of myself? And I think like on that note too, relationships are triggering as hell. They're triggering as hell, like people being like that close with someone, it can bring up your shit. It makes you realize things about yourself, or like, why am I being so irritated by this particular thing? Like what is that hitting for me? Like what wound is that tapping on? Right. And I think that's why like, you have to be willing, you have to have like the humility to be willing to work on yourself. If you want to be in quality relationships with people, you really do. And that's why people who do not work on themselves or like do not seek out resources and opportunities to be introspective have a shit time in dating, because they'll sabotage or they'll run away or they'll, get something will hit a nerve for them, and they'll be like, well, fuck that person, versus getting curious about it and being like, what does that say about me? Right? Like it really doesn't have that much to do with the other person at the end of the day. Like, yeah, it's about your relationship with yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that is a huge lesson that some people don't learn or that they don't learn for a long time.
Totally.
Is that when you get triggered, that it doesn't really have anything to do with the other person or the circumstance, that really it's like, okay, what does that say about me? And not in like a it's your fault or like blame way, but just
not
like
in a blame way, but like I really believe in like also reframing responsibility as power. And like when you can take responsibility for what you're doing and what's yours, and like what like the reality that in every single relationship you're in, you are the common denominator. So like if there's some unhealthy pattern going on, it's not everyone else's fault. It's like, why the fuck are you giving your attention to those people? And I don't mean that in a like why the fuck, but like literally ask yourself, like, why the fuck am I doing that? Like it's there's so much more agency that we have in this process than I think a lot of people see, right? Because we're like, oh, it's, yes, a lot is contingent on other people's response, but like you choose who you give your attention to. You choose who you let into your life. You choose like who you set boundaries with, when you set boundaries, and how. And obviously like boundaries, that's a whole nother yummy, juicy playground too, because like we don't learn how to set boundaries in school, or like, like that is a amazing skill that like you kind of have to make a practice. You have to seek out how to learn to do that yourself. Yeah. Well,
I mean, speaking of not being taught things in school, there's a lot of life skills that just aren't taught in school. And
it's true.
Listening to yourself, listening to why you get triggered, not blaming other people for your emotions, for your actions, for your thoughts.
Yeah. And that's actually really, I think a lot of people hear the word of responsibility and they like want to run for the hills because we think of like, responsibility, but like responsibility is power. Like when you can take responsibility for something, you take ownership over it, you take your power back in that thing. And yes, sometimes other people are shitty, right? And like that's a skill set too, is to be able to discern, okay, what here is my shit and what here is this other person's shit, and like not taking responsibility for their shit and not asking them to take responsibility for your shit.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's one thing that I love about you, Cora, and you have this on your website as well, is just like the straight talk. It's like real talk, straight talk. Like if you want someone to just be like fucking real with you, like just give me a call.
Yeah, for real. I'm from the East Coast too. So and then I think living in New Orleans for so long was definitely really formative. It's just such a special place where like, people are, what I love about New Orleans, people are very good at being themselves, and it's just like everything's on the surface. So I think that definitely, I mean, I'm a coach too. So I of course, people pay me to be honest with them. Yeah. But I would say that like my cultural background has something to do with it too.
makes it a little bit easier for you.
Exactly.
Well, and plus in being honest, and that's a good lesson too. And plus in being honest, then you start to see the benefits of being honest.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I'm really grateful to myself for like creating a professional life for myself where this gets to be the case. But like more and more, and as I like work on myself more, and as I like do this work with people more, like I just straight up don't have an off switch. Like sometimes it's difficult for me. It's my censorship muscle is like very atrophied, which like it's a much more relaxing existence for sure. And like, yeah, sometimes there might be times when I'm like, I could probably have held my tongue a little bit. Yeah.
But I think that, and this ties into exactly what you're saying is about dating, is that when you are yourself, like when you're okay with being yourself, when you love yourself, when you like yourself, when you're being the authentic, organic you, people kind of naturally filter themselves out.
Exactly. And it's just like, if you show up visibly as yourself, you're actually going to attract people who are into you because they can see who you are. Yeah. Versus like, what, like, can we just like get rid of all this like facade and this, like, you know what I mean? Because it's like, it's literally distracting and people can't see you. Your people who want to find you can't see you.
Right. Yeah. It's like there are people that are looking for you. I promise.
Absolutely.
I promise there are people that are looking for you.
Yeah.
And if you're not making yourself seen by being you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. They can't see you.
Yeah. And that's something I say to my clients a lot too, is just like, remember that your future partner, like this person you want to meet, exists and they want to meet you just as badly as you want to meet them. So like, show the fuck up already, you know, like make it easy for them to find you. Come on. Just like put yourself out there. Like they're not going to find you if you're just sitting on your couch, like being a grumpy little baby. They're just not, you know? So like if you can't do it for yourself, do it for your future partner, your future girlfriend, whatever, you know?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Like start showing up for that relationship now.
Yeah.
For the relationship you want. And part of what that might mean for you at this juncture, if you're single and looking, is like, get the fuck out there and like start doing the shit that recharges your mojo and like helps you feel good and feel like the best version of yourself. So like your cup is full and you can have that creativity to see possibilities and see options and like create and think of and find new ways to meet people. And that's something I say to clients a lot too. It's like, if you want to meet more people, you have to meet more people.
Right.
A lot of this is very simple, but like people there's so much like chatter of like talking ourselves out of it, or like, oh, here's how you have to do dating, or here's how you have to blah, 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 or like, here's how you meet people. It's like, no, dude, people are everywhere and you can meet them.
People are literally, especially if you're coaching people who are in the city. It's like there's
literally like, everywhere. Yeah.
All over the place.
Right.
Just crawling with people.
Yes. Dripping off the walls. Just people. It's raining people.
It is. We've literally infested this place. So.
Yes, exactly. They're everywhere. Right. So like also if someone's saying like, oh, like, you know, I can't meet anyone I connect with, like that's okay, like take some responsibility for that. Like get yourself in environments where people you want to meet are going to be. Like work on your skills for connecting with people. Like who are you being that you're not able or to connect with anyone, or you're not attracting anyone who you are excited about. Like
So when you're having these conversations with people about, you know, what's blocking them from other people, like what are some things that come up for people that's blocking them?
Yeah. It's a variety of things. There's some like common themes. There's kind of like a few different demographics. Quite frankly, a lot of this boils down to many people not being in possession of their sexuality.
Ooh, say more
in
about
some
that.
form or another, right?
Okay.
So like one thing that I see happen a lot is like someone will, doesn't have any problem getting first dates, right? Like they might be pretty good at sourcing first dates and getting on those dates, but like none of them are leading to subsequent dates. And like it's very often because they are not expressing interest on dates. They're not comfortable like holding tension. I tell my clients too, like flirtation is all about holding tension, creating and holding tension. I know, it's so fun.
I love it.
It's so fun. I know, it's about being playful and like present and holding tension and letting things be a little uncomfortable and like being like forward but subtle and nuanced, like it's a dance. It's an absolute dance, and it requires like this ownership over your own, like when I say sexuality or like sensuality, playfulness, whatever, like just this like your life force, really, right? Like owning that so that you can like invite someone to fucking play with you versus showing up and treating a date like a fucking job interview, or like not even letting your date know that you find them attractive, right? So like if you don't feel confident in your own like sensuality, right? Like you're not going to feel comfortable expressing that kind of interest in someone else. And then if someone goes on a date with you and you're like, it's all cut and dry. They're just like, what the fuck, is that person even into me? And we invest in people who invest in us. Right. So like, if you're not investing in that way, like, of course people don't want to see you again. If you're just, yeah. So that boils down a lot to that. And then I would say that, that brings me to another, important one, the investment piece of like over investing before it's earned. So like I see it with my clients as like two beer levers, I call it, where like one is how much you like someone and one is how much you invest in someone. So very often if like the lever of how much you are into them, how excited you are, how much you like them is going at full force, like the impulse might be to like put the investment lever at full force. And when I say investment, I mean like time, energy, invitations, like, depth of invitation, connecting, like being in touch, like what, you know, all of that, like the investment is a conversation that between two people in terms of like progressing things forward, where like you want to invest proportionally to how they invest in you, right? Like just because you like someone doesn't mean that, like you should invest a ton in them, right? Like, are they investing back in you? So like, and of course, you know, you want to take risks and you might invest more and like see if they meet you there, right? But like what I see a lot is someone will get really excited and then they invest, and that just scares someone off. So like it's almost like if you go on like 2 dates with someone and then they bought you a convertible, right? You'd be like, what? Yo, I thank you. I can't accept this. This is like, that's what it feels like emotionally when someone is thirsty and on your ass. Right. You know what I mean? You're just like, whoa, you don't even, it actually, what it does to the other person, and makes them feel less special because they're like, oh, they don't know me enough to be this invested in me. What is wrong with this person? And like, also I could literally be anyone to them. Yeah. Like I'm just filling a relationship size hole in their life right now. Like that's really unattractive, right? So that's the tricky balance, because of course, so many people are really eager to get into relationships and they're really eager to connect, right? And that's a beautiful thing. And it's just so, so important to be cognizant of like investing proportionally to how you see someone investing in you, and letting someone also being interested in you and also wanting to spend time with you be a prerequisite of you wanting to spend time with them. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The word that you used earlier was a dance. Mm-hmm. Like it's all a dance.
Yeah. It's like, hey, I'm going to do this thing. Are you going to meet me here? Ooh, okay. No, you didn't. Okay. I'm going to chill here for a little bit. Oh, okay. Oh, now you're okay. Now, you know, it's like, all right. Okay.
That's totally how it feels though.
It is. It's a dance. It's totally a dance.
It's like, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's why I think, we can't get so caught. It's about understanding a dynamic more than it is about having rules around dating of like, oh, after 3 dates you do this. Like that's irrelevant. It's literally understanding how the dynamic works and like responding to each other in various ways. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's something else that you see as like a roadblock for people.
Yeah.
And like dating and like putting themselves out there and like being themselves. Well,
over investing or just being really attached to a prescribed timeline and a prescribed way of doing things versus like exploring something with someone.
Like you mean like, you know, if you've had a date with someone, like you can't text them unless it's been at least 2 or 3 days.
Exactly.
Or whatever that
or just like any of this game playing stuff. And like we're touching on, it's strategic. Like strategy has a place in dating for sure. Mm-hmm. You want to put your best foot forward. You want to kind of like think about how you're coming off, especially in the initial phases. Cause like this person literally doesn't know you, right? Like they only know of you what you're presenting to them. So yeah, it is important, especially at first, to like be aware. And like, yeah, we're all a little calculated. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it means you care about like creating the environment or the ecosystem where the relationship can best grow, right? But it's not about like, it's not about rules. It's not about winning. It's a game in its own right, but it's a different kind of game with the outcome gets to be of like, oh, we have a shared incentive that we both would really like to connect on a deep level. And like, in order to optimize for that possibility, yeah, maybe the strategy at first is to be a little bit more cognizant of like, okay, how much, like, just respond versus like, whew. That being said, I love a bold move, but a bold move, it's like a calculated risk. So I talk about micro risks a lot with my clients, or like, there's a lot of risk in dating and relationships. Like, you always have to, like, you don't know how you're putting yourself out there. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So, all of this is not to say like, you can't progress a relationship forward if you're both just matching each other's investment level constantly, because then it's just going to stay the same. Like, at some point, one or both people need to be taking these little risks to like, be like, hey, my friend's having a party. Like, you haven't met my friends yet. Do you want to, that's like a little risky at first. It's vulnerable at first when you're first getting to know someone, is you're like, hey, I want to, subtext being like, I want to invite you in a little more. Like, do you want to do that? And then like, and then they do or they don't, right? You don't know. Right. But yeah, I mean, I absolutely think that strategy has a place in dating and relationships. And I bring this up because like, I like historically and predominantly often work with men. So part of why I initially chose to work with men is because I saw how much a resource like this was like completely needed, and how much dudes either don't talk to each other about this, or have shitty resources, or simply don't have resources. And one of the main resources in the last like 10 years or so has been the pickup artist community. So like, for dudes who haven't gotten a grasp on dating yet, like, that's where they're going. And that really concerns me, because yeah, it's a highly strategized world, but it's also manipulative. Yeah. And there's a difference between being strategic and being manipulative. So yeah, I bring that up because I think there is a fine line, and I notice too that many people are uncomfortable with the idea of being strategic in dating. I mean, it's like,
because there is that fine line.
There is a fine line,
strategic and manipulative.
Right. Yeah, exactly. There is a fine line of like. Right? Yeah. Like,
you don't want to like what I see with pickup artists, right? Is that you are specifically creating scenarios for someone to do what you want them to do.
Yes, exactly.
And not always with the best intentions.
The intention is to win.
Right.
The intention in pickup artistry is to win, versus like using strategy in a really like awesome, expansive, loving way in dating is literally because you have a shared incentive to connect with each other, and you want to create the environment and like the space for that to be able to happen.
Beautifully said. Yeah.
Yeah. But you're right. There's totally is a fine line. It's a little confusing. And I think that some people are uncomfortable with like the idea of being calculated in dating, or like, I know when I first started my business, people would ask me that, because I was single when I started my business. Yeah. And I was actively dating, but people would always be like, are you like super calculated? And I was like, I mean, like, yeah. I guess, like, I don't know if calculated is the right word. Am I hyper intentional about like how I show up and who I spend time with and like what I want to experience? Fuck yeah. Like, aren't you? Yeah. Or like, no, I'm not unconsciously stumbling around just being like, yeah, whatever, of course. Right. And there needs to be an element to like actually enjoy the process and have fun there also needs to be space for exploration. Like, you want that intentionality, but you need space to like challenge yourself and be open to new possibilities, and maybe be open to giving someone a chance you might not have, if you know, like, there's absolutely space to explore and space to be intentional or intentionally exploring, right? But I think when I talk about intentionality too, it's like, it's literally just knowing what you want. And that's so important for dating and relationships, is like taking some time with yourself to be like, what the fuck do I want? What do I want to experience? Like, what do I want?
Yeah.
Yeah. What do I want out of this?
Yeah. Like, what do you want in a partner? How do you want a relationship to look? You know, what are your like, for me, you know, an example of something that I don't want. Like, I'm not compatible with someone who would want me to, you know, be home every night. Yeah. Right? Like that. No. Like me and that person are not compatible. Are you an ENFP? Oh my God. I know I took that test, but I feel like I do not remember.
That's okay.
I have it saved on my computer somewhere. Yeah. I think I took a screenshot of it. Yeah.
Nice.
But you know, it's like knowing what you want in a very specific, like, how do you want your relationship to go? How do you want your life to go? You know, who are you for that person? Who is that person for you?
Right. And what I also urge, this gets to be a slippery, sneaky slope too, because I think a lot of people might hear this and then they're like, oh, great. So like, has to be this, has to be blah, 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 and create like a list that is actually quite confining, versus what I urge my clients to do is be like, yeah, think about like the person you want to meet, think about the relationship you want to create and experience, but like focus on the character, like the values and the character qualities underneath what you're naming, right? Like, if you're like, oh yes, I only date architects, it's just like, what the fuck? Like, that's so limiting to yourself. What is it about an architect that like compels you? Is it that this is a person who has both an artistic sensibility and
intelligence
and a super logical implementing and cutting intelligence? Like, is it someone that like is a visionary and also like follows through? Like, what is it that's actually underneath that? And what are the other like 500 possible ways that those qualities can manifest in a person, right? Like, now you have options, now you have possibilities. That's fun, versus like, and you get what you want. Right?
Yeah.
And you experience what you want. But I think also like what I love so much about romance and relationships is that there's a mystery to it, right? There's a lot we don't understand. And sometimes we're inexplicably just drawn to someone and we're like, what? Like, this is not what I expected, or this. So like, I believe so much in allowing the room for that magic and that possibility and that like exploration and that element of surprise to come through. While still being very intentional with like, what do you want to experience? Like, what are the standards of treatment that you have? Like, how do you want to feel in a relationship, right? Like, that to me is much more important than like exactly someone's educational background or like whatever it might be. All these things that we are like latch onto because it makes us feel safe and in control, right? Yeah.
I'm reminded of a friend of mine who met her husband after she did something very similar, where it was like opening herself up to other possibilities, where before it was like, I need to date someone who's over this weight. I need to date someone who's over this height. I need to be with someone who has this type of job. Like, she was like very much like that first person that you described.
Right.
And then did a very similar thing where it's just like, okay, but what's like underneath that? Like, what's
what is it about a tall guy? Is it that it makes you feel like safe and feminine and like in a traditionally feminine, or like, like, what are all the other ways? And like, sure, go date tall dudes. Tall dudes are great. You know, like, but it's not about that. It's about like, what is that? Why do you want that? Like, what does that make you feel? How does that make you feel?
Exactly. And then it was so crazy because when she did that, when she did like the underlying work of all of that, who showed up was like not what her original list looked like at all. Like, she's married now. Like, they
That's amazing.
Fell madly in love with each other. But like, some of the things that she was like, oh, I don't want to date someone who's like over this height or something like that. I can't remember what it was,
right?
But it was like he was over that height. You know what I mean? But it was just like opening herself up to those possibilities.
Absolutely
allowed for something to show up that was surprising to her.
And that's what literally the definition of romance, I think, is if I remember correctly, it's a feeling of mystery and otherworldliness associated with love.
Ooh.
Right? Isn't that good? But yeah, like there's and that's what's so beautiful about it too, is like your partner is like you don't even fully understand them. Sometimes they have weird habits that you're just like, I do not understand but there's like such a beauty in just like reveling in the mystery of this other person, right? And I love that. And that's why I'm all about, when it comes to dating, when it comes to relationships, like any kind of relationship, it's like, what are the possibilities here? And if you are a person who is only clear currently on what you don't want, like start there and look at what is the inverse of what I want, what I don't want. Like, what's the inverse of that? Okay, cool. That's what I want. How can you lead with what you want versus what you don't want? Right? Like, it's a totally different way to operate.
Yeah. Well, and I found that if you focus on what you don't want, what shows up is that, because that's what you're focusing on.
Exactly.
You're putting all of your energy into what you don't want.
And it's literally what you see. It's like that, the exercise where like you say, okay, like look around the room, look at everything that's red. And we close our eyes, and then it's like, what was green? It's like, you have no fucking idea. Because like, you know, and also a really important thing too is like questions. The questions we ask ourselves direct our focus. So like when I work with clients, what I like, a lot of the impact of my work is I ask them questions they haven't asked themselves before.
Yes.
Yeah. So that opens, it's like your mind is a Google search. And if you're typing in like, why do men suck? You're going to have you're going to have pages and pages of results, right? But like, if you like Google search, like, where can I meet awesome men? Or, you know, whatever it is, it's just like the questions you ask yourself, that's where you're going to get results for what you're asking yourself.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's friggin' brilliant. I love the Google shirt.
Yeah.
I love the Google search.
Isn't that a good way to think of it? Because like that's what you're reading on I mean, like metaphorically, right? It's like what you're reading. But I actually
you're feeding your brain.
Right, exactly. And like I talk to my clients too about like, what kind of content are you consuming? Like, what are you feeding your mind, right? Because like, if you want to believe that everything sucks and like you're never going to find love, you can find evidence to support that. You can find statistics to support that. You can find shit to feed your story. So like, but why are we not creating stories that are more empowering to us and asking questions that are more empowering to us?
Mm-hmm. Because then you can find evidence for that. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I also like, I mean, a lot of what we're talking about is like, you know, from the personal growth realm, for sure.
Yes.
And I fully believe in thinking positively and like selectively directing your focus. Absolutely. And like, yeah, sometimes shit sucks. You know what I mean? Like I would say that like realism or being realistic is a huge part of, what I do too, but like maybe my idea of what's realistic is different because I think a lot of things are realistic. I'm a realistic optimist, I would say.
Totally.
Yeah. But I think it's also so important throughout the process to like allow things to suck sometimes, or like allow yourself to be upset, or like allow things to not be okay. And like, that's okay. You don't have to stay there, but like, yeah, sometimes something sucks, or like sometimes someone really breaks your heart, or like sometimes you do something ridiculously stupid, you know, like it fucking happens. Yeah. It happens. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, regardless of how many books you read or how many podcasts you listen to or whatever YouTube channel or Netflix series or seminars that you go to, at the end of the day, you are a human being.
Yeah.
and we're all human beings.
Yeah.
And we all do stupid shit.
Totally.
And we all fucking suck sometimes.
Yeah.
And yeah, and there is just like being in the reality of that. Just being in the reality of like, we're all humans.
Yeah.
Trying to do the best we can.
Yep.
Sometimes we're stupid and we suck.
And some people try harder to be the best they can than others. Yeah. I believe that too. And like, I do believe everyone's doing
I believe that the majority of us
are doing the best we can.
I do.
And I do think that a lot of people could do a lot better.
I believe that too.
Like, I just want us all to hold ourselves and each other to a higher standard, you know?
Agreed. Oh my God. Well, especially talking about dating. And I often, more times than not, you mostly work with men, and I work with men too, but I more than often I get the feedback and work with women more often. And one of the things that I see, hear, read is the incredibly low standards that women hold for their partners.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that changes. Literally, this is something that will completely transform your dating and romantic life, is like, have some fucking standards and hold people to that. You don't have to be an asshole. You don't have, like, it's not a bad thing. In fact, that is one of the single most things that makes you incredibly attractive. If you have standards.
Yeah, exactly. Because then you aren't that person that's just like, oh, I could be anybody.
And also just like, don't fuck with anything less than what you want. And like, also sometimes people need to be invited to rise to your standard. And you can give them that opportunity. If they do something ridiculous, and you can be like, hey, listen, that's not gonna fly here. Like, here's what is. Like, you can give people, people treat you how you teach them to treat you. So like, there's a learning curve, yo.
I'm like, praise the Cora Boyd. Praise the Cora Boyd. Literally, oh my God, that is one of the most brilliant things. It is. You are literally training people all the time.
All the time.
How they can treat you.
Exactly. So that's another thing to bring up too, because I think, especially, I'll say this, like, especially women.
Yep.
We can get really attached to like, no, this is my standard and this is how and like, he fucked it up. He didn't pass the test. Versus like, how can you invite someone to rise to your standard? If they don't, like, be like, okay, wow, okay, sucks for that person. Oh well, right? But like,
yeah, I always say
it doesn't need to be so. Thanks for playing, exactly. But like, it's all about inviting people into the kind of relationships you want to experience versus like, like making it such a practice of like cut, right? Like, yes, get rid of the wrong people faster for sure. But like, you can be like, just be curious about it and invite people in. Invite people to rise to that standard. Invite people to interact in the way that you want to. Invite people to have the kinds of conversations you want to have, right?
Right.
And take responsibility for, like, if you want to experience those things, if you want to experience those relationships, you need to start showing up in that way too, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, holding yourself to the same standard.
Hold yourself to the same standard. Clean up your shit.
Yeah. And I really like that idea of inviting someone in.
Yeah, and that's how I see it too. When like you're starting a conversation with someone and who you find attractive, you might be nervous. It's like you're literally just inviting them to connect with you, and they're either gonna accept or not accept that invitation for a variety of reasons that most of which probably don't have that much to do with you anyway. Like, you're just extending an invitation to someone. It doesn't that like take the pressure off so much? Like, if you're asking someone out, you're just like inviting them to spend time with you.
Right.
If you want, or having a relationship conversation, you're just inviting someone to like be closer with you. Like, it's all just invitation. And isn't that beautiful?
I know. I love that.
Yeah.
And the same thing too is that when you invite them, going back to the standard conversation.
Yeah.
And when you invite someone, you say, this is my stand. These are, what did you say? You said, if someone does something and you're like, no, that shit doesn't fly.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And then
you set a boundary.
And
you let them know.
And you let them know what that boundary is.
Here's what you could rise to.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Right. And it's like, but then, if they don't meet that, then consistently, then it's like, okay, well,
okay, cool. It's been good, or it hasn't, or maybe it hasn't,
but thanks for playing.
Thank you for playing. Exactly.
Ariana Grande. Thank you next.
Yes. Thank you next. Yes.
But being able to like hold that, because that is definitely a lesson that I've had to learn. Yeah. For sure. Yeah. Where it's just like, I can set standards. Yeah. Fine. Right. But when someone breaks that, I always give people wiggle room when I've said before. And so, but then what that tends to do is that since I have that wiggle room, all of my other standards start to crumple. Yeah. Right. Because it's like, okay, well, what I said, what my standard was, or what I expect, or how I want to be treated, is actually kind of gray, right? Instead of being like, no, this is actually how it's going to go around me, right? You can't, you can't treat me this way, or like you can do this, or whatever that is that I've created, right? When I start to give that, like, oh well, I guess it was okay that one time, or well, you actually have to. You can be compassionate, invite them to learn, invite them to rise to the occasion, and also lay down the fucking law, and you have to actually be willing to walk away. Yeah, that's the thing with like relationships across, but like you have to actually you have to love yourself more, right? You have to like it's like bringing in some like polyamory rhetoric to like your primary relationship is with yourself. Yeah, you're your primary partner, and like the other person like is the secondary relationship. Fuck yeah, dude.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. And but it's really true. And you have to, and especially when you go into polyamory, and I don't know if you ever coach people who are interested in polyamorous relationships. I do a little bit. So yeah, definitely my sphere of expertise is more within the monogamous realm for sure. I have dabbled in like various relationship structures myself. Ultimately, I'm a pretty monogamous person. And so typically people who resonate with, like, that's mostly what I create my content around. But like truly my message and what I help people with is like doing dating in the way that works for them. Yeah. So, will I work with people? Absolutely. Yeah. Is there probably someone else a little more knowledgeable in that realm than me? Yeah, for sure. Me. Yeah. Elizabeth Ann Cunningham. Elizabeth Ann Cunningham. Yes. The Elizabeth Ann.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think that we're all human at the end of the day. So, and I think that what you have said up until this point is very applicable to anyone who's dating, regardless of what relationship structure they want in dating.
Well, that's the thing too, is like even within heteronormative monogamous relationships, each relationship is a new creation between two people. Like it's not the same shit every single time. Yeah. Even if it's another monogamous relationship between two, like a straight man and a straight woman. Like even then, like how can you think for yourself, and how, like, you don't have to have a relationship no matter what that looks like anyone else's relationship.
Yeah. And one of the things that I say is that each relationship gets to be fully self-expressed. Yeah. Yeah. And you have, you're dating someone new. Yeah. You've never dated this person before. Yeah. What are you going to create? What's the fullest expression of that relationship with that person? Yeah. What does that look like? And it's like, it's a game. It's fun. You can get creative. You're just like, how does my stuff mesh with your stuff? Right. And like, how can we,
what are we going to do about this?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. It's like, you love hiking and I can't fucking stand it.
Yep.
So, you know, that's not something that we're going to do together. But like, how am I as your partner going to foster your love of hiking without going with you?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's another thing too, is like, you don't have to have everything in common. You don't have to think the same things all the time. Like, it's so funny, especially when I used to be in matchmaking. I would work with clients all the time who would be like, yeah, so I really want someone who's like super open-minded, open to explore, like challenges me, like, you know, opens up my world, blah, blah, blah. And I want someone who thinks the exact same thing I do on X, Y, and Z. I'm like, woohoo! Yeah, have fun with that. You know, I mean, I would playfully challenge them on that, of course.
Totally.
But I think like, especially... yeah, you don't have to be into all the same shit. You don't have to like operate in the same world. Like, yes, it's like, how are you going to coexist? How are you like, maybe it is too disparate, your worlds and your interests, right? But like, I love being in relationships. I love dating. I mean, when I say being in relationships too, I'm talking about my friends here as well. Like, it's so expansive to have people in your life who have a different perspective than you.
It totally is.
Yeah. And that is something that kind of concerns me about online dating in our current political climate, which is incredibly polarized, is that it allows us to pre-filter and pre-select based on, you know,
political preference.
Right. Which obviously, yes, it's a factor, of course, you know, but like there's something sticky here that like we need to untangle a little more.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so my background is actually in political science.
Oh yeah,
like part of my background is in political science. I know,
parkour in political science. Oh my god,
I know. We need to hang out more.
So
Cora.
much about you. I know. Yes.
So I do have I have a lot of friends who and it's so interesting when you get into politics, and that just opens up a whole new world for me, since like I have a background in that.
Yeah.
But it is being able to speak to someone for who they are, and loving and respecting someone for who they are and their point of view. And something that I tell myself in just my practice of loving people is that if I and I'm going to say this out loud and then I'm going to have to qualify it, okay?
Okay.
Because I know what I mean when I say it in my head.
Yeah.
But if I had lived their life, I would have made the same decisions.
Yeah.
I would believe the same things. I would have the same friends. I would own the same toys. I would live in the same house. If I had been that person, I would have done the same exact thing.
Yeah.
Because when we put our beliefs on other people, that's exactly what we're doing. We're putting our beliefs on them.
A belief is nothing more than a feeling of certainty that something is true.
Right.
And yeah, exactly. Also, people value different things. They have different incentives. And like, I think, you know, for all that is questionable or challenging about categorizing all of humanity into classifications in the way that like personality tests, different types of personality tests do, I find them really helpful. I find that kind of work really helpful because it helps you understand that like other people have different motherboards than you do, right? They have a different operating system. And like what is true for you might not be true for them. And like that doesn't make it less true for you.
Right, exactly.
But they're literally just operating with a different set of values and incentives than you are.
And it also doesn't make them wrong.
It doesn't make them wrong. Exactly.
And
it just makes it not an aligned match between you.
Exactly. And it doesn't make you wrong either.
Right.
Yeah. And like it doesn't work that way. Beliefs don't work that way.
Yeah.
It's not like beliefs. I think that's that entanglement that you were talking about, that's part of it.
Absolutely.
Is that we have it like, if you're not wrong, then that means you're right, which means that I'm wrong, which is not how beliefs work.
No.
It's just, you have your belief, I have my belief.
Yeah.
That's how we feel about the world. And we both exist on the same world. Right. And we're starting to get like super like out there in all this. But I fucking love it though.
I know,
like if I could talk about this stuff all the
so
time, I would
it.
totally do it. Oh my God. Yeah. But it's just, it doesn't, no one's wrong. It's all just, that's your world view.
Right. And some people are choosing worldviews that are incredibly limiting.
Yes. And also, and just to be clear, also some people are choosing worldviews that are very dangerous to other people, which is where when I do have these conversations with people, that's where the argument tends to spark, is they're like, well, of course they're wrong because their view is harmful to other people. And so that's when I try to take out the word wrong and right and replace it with it works or it doesn't work. Right. And it actually does work for them. It actually works for them that they have that point of view. Whether it works for the people that they're hurting is a completely different story. But it actually does work for them that they have that point of view. But then we as a society, have a reaction to whatever that is that they're doing. And then we're like, hey, you can't hurt other people. And so this is what we're going to do about it. But I think that when you have but then going back to like, going all the way back to having those just like so strongly held, like almost dogmatic views about things is something that you have to challenge yourself about too. It's like, what am I holding on to so tightly that I can't see anything else? That I might actually even be hurting people. Because I'm holding on to this belief so tightly. And not seeing that other people believe other things. But that's when it stays in the healthy realm, is that when we have the understanding that other people believe other things. And that's okay.
Yes, well said. Absolutely. Amen. Cunningham. Amen.
Anyway, so dating. Go upon my political chant.
No, I love it. I completely agree.
So exactly. So I think that one of the things that works in just relationships with other people is just having the belief that it's okay to have different beliefs.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, what we were saying of like, you can find evidence to support pretty much anything.
Yup.
And I would say that brings an interesting piece up in terms of like how we make decisions in relationships. And like, as you know, I work a lot with men, I work with women as well and couples as well. But what I see a lot in men is a learned behavior to make decisions only based on logic. When ideally in relationships and just across the board, you're making decisions based off of a conversation between your logic and your emotion, right? Because like emotions are there to tell us something, and like, you want to think things through, right? Like don't go whim off your mood constantly, right? Like, but let it be a conversation between your emotions and your logic. And like, quite frankly, when it comes to dating and like wanting to see people again, we make decisions based off of how we feel, and then we find logical evidence to support those decisions. And I think that's really relevant to bring up, because so much of of dating, I say to my clients that the idea of a first date is just to gauge if there's enough intrigue to want to see each other again. That's it. And like, I'm sure you've heard too of like, we don't really remember what people said. We remember how they made us feel,
yes.
right? Like, it's really, how do we feel around a certain person? And like, do we like how we feel around them? Do we want to feel that again?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, and I think, yeah, that was brilliant. Like having that conversation between your logic and your emotions.
Yeah.
And when we talk about the feeling that you get when you're with a person, like it doesn't necessarily, it's just listening to that gut feeling. Yeah. Right. It's like, okay, does that gut feeling tell me that I just want to fuck this person?
Right.
Because sometimes like when I go on first dates, I'm like, my only feeling was just like, I would totally fuck you.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
But that's about it.
Yeah.
but then noticing that it's like, that is the only feeling that's there.
Right.
So it's like, okay, well then maybe I'll have a conversation with them about like, well, if you want to sleep together, like sweet, but like, I don't actually want to date you.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
Or like having the feeling of, you know, whatever the feeling is of like liking someone or like being interested or like wanting, yeah, exactly. But being able, but that's right. Like using the logic inside of like listening to the feeling,
right?
Using the logic of the feeling, acting off of that conversation.
Exactly.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
I love that. I've never heard it phrased in exactly that way, like a conversation between your logic and your emotion.
Yeah. And that's the way to do dating. And that's what I'm saying too, is like strategy has a place, like logic has a place here, right? Of course. And it's emotion driven. How can you actually get your logic and your emotion to work as a team rather than being at odds with each other all the time, right? Mm-hmm. That's when you can make shit happen.
Oh my God. That's fucking brilliant.
Yeah.
I'm just like kind of enamored by that right now. I'm just like, that's so
Isn't that fun?
Yes.
Yeah. It just makes it feel like so juicy and challenging. It's challenging in a really compelling way.
Totally. It's like a fun exercise. Well, you used the word playground earlier.
Yeah.
Right?
That's kind of how I like to think about it. I'll use the word framework too, but it's really like a playground. It's like, whoo, and there's a slip and slide over there. And like, okay, I'm going to practice the monkey bars over here. And like, yeah, exactly. Like,
yeah, but then, parkour. Exactly. I was literally just about to say like, this works so well with my parkour.
Yeah.
And then you can, you know, move on to, you know, you work on this part of the playground, then you can work on to more challenging parts of the playground. And then, you know, but it's not like that first part of the playground goes away. It's like, you know, you can come back to
it's like, here's the part where people come into the playground. Here's like sourcing the first dates. And then it's like, okay, then what? Okay, now we go on the monkey part. Like, yeah, exactly. It's like,
I love that
mastering
analogy.
the playground and also always finding new ways to play in the playground.
That feeds my like tiny little parkour soul.
That's wonderful.
I've literally only been doing parkour for like a year and a half or something. That's like
awesome.
That.
Yeah.
But I just love that so much because I'm always trying to find ways to meld movement and love and like together. Yeah. Right? I'm like movement and love together, movement and love together. Like I'm always trying to find ways to like analogy or like create or, you know,
a dance.
So
it's a dance. It's a playground. It's playing together. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I love that. I love that so much. That makes me so happy. Okay, so what are some things like? What are some? I hesitate to ask you this question just because I don't want it to turn into like a Cosmo article. But what's like the thing that you just want people to know about? Like what's Cora's like little tidbit of advice that will like set you free in dating?
I would say, like, honestly, it really boils down to, like, assuming we find growing fun, which I do. How can you make it fun for you? How can you make it fun for both of you?
Yeah.
What are all the possible ways? I'm big on possibility too.
I hear that.
What are all the possible ways to make it fun for both of you?
That's fun. And it ties back into it's a game.
Yeah.
Like it can be fun and playful.
Yeah.
And
it's a game that you're playing together and you both have the same, you're working as a team.
Yeah.
It's not a game you're playing against each other. That's the thing of like, you know, like I used to be kind of hesitant to even use game. I'm learning a lot about game theory right now too. So I'm really into it, but
okay.
I used to be really hesitant about even like using game lingo around dating because like, you know, like it's also serious. It's like opening yourself up to someone and vice versa. Like it's not a fucking game at the same time. You know what I mean? So yeah, I was hesitant before to use game lingo around this because I also, for all of them, I'm like, yes, make it fun, blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't want to trivialize like the profundity of the experience and like how it is high risk in a lot of ways. Like you can get really fucking hurt. I'm sure we've all been like really heartbroken a time or two. And I have like pretty significantly 2 times in my life. And like those have been 2 of the more formative experiences for me. Like I'm really grateful for those experiences because I think they've made me a better person.
Yeah.
But I bring this up because like there is such a there's like a sacredness to this as well. Yeah. And like it can be fun and profound. Like for me, profundity is fun. Yeah. Right. So it's all about like what is fun for you. Right. But like I think coming back to like in order to be happy, we need to feel a sense of purpose and we need to feel challenged and engaged. Right. Like that's actual fun, not to be confused with just like the junk food of fun. Right. Of like instant gratification, constant validation. Right. Like you can let your ego, like I'm also really big on like, not shaming the ego, and like actually throwing your ego a bone, giving your ego a treat, like letting your ego be there. Like you recognize that it's your fucking ego, right? But like you're a fucking human. We're all humans. We have egos. Yeah. And like in mindfulness or like spirituality, there's obviously a lot about like, you know, letting go of your ego and you're like, yeah, that's beautiful. But like,
but it's always going to be there.
And it's so much fun to let it thrive. It actually gives you less issues if you like throw it a bone, you know? So, yeah, I'm really big on that. And I feel really passionately about like letting yourself have a little bit of an ego.
Yeah. No,
yeah.
I think...
And you can recognize that's what it is, but like, it's there.
Yeah.
So like, how do you, same with like logic and emotion working as a team, like how do you actually get your ego on board with like higher purpose or like these more profound avenues of like substantial connection, right? Like how do you get your ego to like be on board with that process instead of like fighting you in that, right? Like how do you get all parts of yourself on board with this process?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I want to go back to the game thing, and then I love what you said about the ego. So I don't want to overstep that. But just like in any sport, that in order to get, because one of the concerns that you had was using games as an analogy, because then you know you don't want to lose like the profoundness,
right?
Of it,
and I do use the game lingo around it. This is more like I had an initial hesitancy to do that, especially because of the book The Game, which is all about like, you know, like but I'm huge on games. And as I'm learning more about game theory too, like there are all kinds of different games, and like the dating and relationships, it's a game wherein you both have the same desired outcome. You both have the same incentive. You're actually working as a team.
Totally.
I forget the term for that in game theory. I think it's like, I forget, but yeah.
Yeah. But
like it is a game. But I think like the word game in dating and relationships, it's like, I'm thinking of like, don't play games with me. Oh, he's playing games with you, blah, blah, blah. Right? Like, I'm not into that kind of game. Yeah. But I think there is intense value in gamifying life.
No, I completely agree with you. And I think that one of the analogies that I really like to use, and especially in me learning parkour in the past year and a half, and like I've done athletics and sports like my whole life.
Yeah.
And there's the practice and the discipline of it.
Yeah.
And there's doing something over and over and over again and failing at it, and then like looking back at it and being like, okay, what did I do well, what did I not do well, what can I improve on next time, and then doing it again, and like until you have a mastery of something. And then if anybody's ever gotten to like a mastery level of something, you know that's when you just start, like that's when you start something. It's like when you it's like now that you're at this quote unquote master level. But I think that like for me, when I think of games, I don't think of the game like in a trivial sense. I think of it in like a process. Like a process of something, like learning something, experimenting something, discovering something, like
entrepreneurship,
failing at something multiple, many times in order for you to be good at something.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yes, I love that. And that also, I just said entrepreneurship because I see so many commonalities between dating and entrepreneurship. It's all about just like putting yourself out there and trying shit out and letting it be an iterative process where like some shit works and some doesn't. And you take what you learn and you use that to inform to steer the ship.
Right.
It's the same shit.
Right.
And I love that because I'm such an entrepreneur. Like I'm just like to my core, I am such an entrepreneur. And like,
I know, I love it. I also love that about you too.
Thank you.
So awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, I love it. So like, I love to like bring, and it's a process. It's a practice. It's like entrepreneurship is also a playground for personal growth.
Yeah.
Like I don't think I realized going into this process how much, how fucking demanding it is on a personal level in terms of like learning to motivate yourself, being your own boss, like just really taking full responsibility for yourself and like working with yourself rather than like, it took me a while to learn too of like, if I'm procrastinating, instead of shaming myself for that or like being a mean boss to myself about that, like getting curious and being like, well, why is there resistance here? Do I not want to do this project? Like what could I shift here that would make me excited to do this? Because I know that like my work ethic, when I'm like fully aligned with something and when I'm stoked about it, like I love working.
Right.
I don't procrastinate.
Right.
So just all of that. And I think that like that applies so much to relationships and dating too, of just like really getting curious about it and like being like, okay, if this resistance is coming up or this thing is coming up or this thing is, you know, whatever it might be, it's like, why?
Yeah.
And what do you need to shift? What do you need? Like what pressure valves do you need to open? Like, what do you need to, I'm almost imagining right now the bowels of the Titanic and like the shifting, you know, like what needs to happen so you can go at full force, right?
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're coming up on time. Obviously, we could talk forever.
Yeah.
Which we just should do
we
that.
should. Yeah.
And, but what do you have coming up, Cora?
Oh my God. I have so much exciting shit coming up. Okay. So first of all, when is this episode going to air?
In not this Tuesday, but
the next one?
Tuesday.
Oh, fuck yeah. Okay. Yeah. So before all my events. So, okay. Yeah. So my next event is a Pillow Talks in Los Angeles. Cool. So Pillow Talks is an event that I do that's it's like a round table discussion on romance and relationships.
I've been to one of your Pillow Talks.
Yes, Miss Cunningham has been and offered quite a lot to the conversation. I hope you come again sometime.
Thanks.
And it's a cocktail party roundtable discussion, and we address a certain topic. I mediate the conversation. It's really fun.
Really super fun.
Everyone is super welcome. It doesn't matter what your relationship status is, what your age is, background. Like I actually love to have like a really diverse lineup of perspectives, because that is the value that I see in this event, is like creating a space where people can share perspectives, like an intergroup dialogue, which I guess is a social work term, which is really more about, it's not about coming to an agreement. It's about understanding where other people are coming from. Mm-hmm. So I love that event so much. I have one coming up in Los Angeles on Thursday, the 23rd. And then I do a live dating show, live dating game show, which we've just rebranded. So now it's kind of like a late night variety show. So that is going to be on February 1st in Seattle at the Rendezvous. And you can go to my Instagram for tickets. We're going to have a comedy opener, a musical act. I'm going to do a staged interview with a professional dominatrix, Mistress Matisse, who's awesome. She also has a cannabis line, including cannabis-infused personal lubricant.
Shut up.
It's an excellent product.
Oh, my God.
So that is coming up on the 1st, and then there's a game show element. The meat and potatoes of the show is a game show element where there are 6 contestants, and we get to know them, and the audience can ask them any questions, and then the audience actually match makes who they want to match with who, and then there's a dance-off. And whichever couple wins the dance-off gets an all-expenses paid date.
Oh, that's
so that
so
event
fun.
is super fun. There's going to be an after party as well. Definitely encourage everyone to come February 1st. It's called Date Night Live with Cora Boyd, if you want to look on Eventbrite too. And then in April, I'm hosting a weekend retreat in New Orleans.
What?
Which I would love to have you come to if you want to run a mini workshop. So basically, I'm going to rent a Victorian mansion, and it's going to be like a full weekend. We're going to have
What weekend in
April 10th. The weekend of April 10th.
Oh my gosh. Okay, we'll talk.
Okay, great. Okay. So, and then I'm inviting other experts to come run like 2 days of mini workshops so people can kind of do a rotation. And if I'm being honest, it's also going to just kind of be a 3-day party in New Orleans. So that's coming up. I'm securing the venue and everything, so tickets haven't gone live yet, but
oh my God.
Stay tuned. Yes, and you can follow me on Instagram at the Cora Boyd, CoraBoyd, and my website is coraboydcoaching.com.
Oh
and yeah,
gosh.
book a call with me. If like any of what I talked about today resonated, I'd love to meet and talk to you.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Listeners. Yeah. Now I'm addressing the listeners.
the listeners.
The listeners.
I'm breaking the fourth wall or whatever that is. I don't know.
Yeah.
Cora, thank you so much. You are brilliant and magnificent and so much fun.
Thank you.
So much fun always. It's just a part of who you are is just fun and light and love, and I just love you.
Thank you so much. I love you too. Yay! Thanks for having me.
Yay, we did it! Yay! Thank you for listening to Love Dripping from the Walls. You can follow on Instagram or Facebook at Love Dripping from the Walls. Leave comments and questions, and I may share your thoughts on the podcast. Please rate and review on whatever platform you are listening on. If you want to support Love Dripping from the Walls, log on to the Anchor app and subscribe or give monthly donations. Keep listening and keep loving.